We have to oil this microphone stand, honey. It's too crazy loud. It's too crazy loud. La 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 la. Hey, hi, Elaine Marilakis Edelson here with Astrology Mojo. I want to help you get your mojo back. Are you a mojo mystic? I think you are. I think so. Yes, I really do. So, how is everyone this holiday week here in America? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're being safe and smart and grateful. Grateful for it all. We're talking about gratitude today and your extremes. Yeah, we're going to go there. So come and join me. Oh, and if you don't know me, then you don't know that I say that in astrology, the planets don't make you do anything, that we live in a cooperation with the cosmos. So that when the planets make a move, you feel it. When you make a move, it's reflected by way of aspects and angles in astrology. So basically, it's a marker for timing. So I look at astrology to see your timing. What time is it? Well, it's now. It's always ever, only ever now. So look at this. My kid made a little mushroom, and I'm going to put a magnet on the back of it. Isn't that the cutest little thing? Okay, so come join me, say hello, let's talk. I will not be here on Thursday because it is Thanksgiving, but I will be back the following Monday, which is the 30th of November. The eclipse. I'll be here on the lunar eclipse in Gemini. So speaking of the eclipse, let's just talk for a second about your behavior. And I want you to pay attention to when you know you're in an extreme. What's an extreme? What's your contradiction? Well, it's when you say one thing, but you do another. And you know when that happens, right? And if you don't, the eclipses come by every 6 months in tandem, lunar and solar or solar and lunar, and they work together 2 weeks apart to help shed light, cast a glow. The lunar eclipse will cast a glow. The solar eclipse will shed light on what you are manifesting. Isn't that exciting? You get to see things in action. You get to see things. Lunar relates to falling away, letting go, also feminine. But there's always a gift that comes with it. So it's a realization. I've been working so hard at something. I finally had to give it up because I'm done with it and it's completed. Yay! You know, that's part of letting go too, is completing projects or completing healing or completing a behavior that you're looking to reverse or to alter. So, you know, it's not always a sad or negative thing, but sometimes it is for some people because they're not aware of what they're doing. And then they become aware of it during times of struggle or times of some tragedy. We never want to see that, never want to see anyone struggle or go through tragedy, but that is it's the hard wake-up call, isn't it? A tragedy. And sometimes it's not because anyone did anything right or wrong in the extreme world. It's just because that is the nature of things, that things pass away, they fall away, they leave. We'll have an earthquake and your house is damaged. It's not because you did anything wrong or right. Sometimes stuff happens, but it's how we respond or react to that stuff or that event that makes all the difference. So I want you to realize that you are the creator of your reality, that you have energy that is powerful, and that you have the ability to move that energy to whatever end. We're not talking about manipulation. We're not talking about other people. We're talking about you specifically. So I want you to notice your extremes. Hey, Elizabeth's here. Good morning. I want you to notice your extremes. What does that mean? Oh, here comes my best friend, my lover, my producer, my husband, with a cup of something hot and yummy. Yay! Thank you, honey. I'm grateful for you. Okay, so what does that mean for you? What do your extremes look like? is, and I said before, it's so easy to notice. It's when you say one thing and do another. Or it's when you have certain restrictions or standards for yourself, but not for someone else, or vice versa. When you say to them, yeah, sure, okay, great. And you're saying to yourself, ever in a million years would I do that? But yet you allow the behavior elsewhere. So these contradictions, I think it's harder for some women to actually get clear on them because there's so much in service. I'm not saying men are not in service at all. They just have a different approach. And there's less of I must have talked about this before. I saw a study once on PBS where teenagers were brought into a science test, into a classroom in high school. And they were maybe 16, 17 years old. And so the boys were led into one room and the girls were led into another. Now, I'm not splitting the hairs between gender nonspecific. I'm talking about this test that was done. So when the boys were brought in, there were these certain problems that they had to solve, mathematical kind of equations. And they were given the instructions, however you need to do it, go for it. However it needs to happen, you just go do it. But no cheating, of course. So the boys automatically lined up, one per desk in a row. When the girls got into the room, they started looking at the problem and they looked at each other and they started communicating. And then they got into a circle. It was fascinating. So the girls worked as a team to solve the problems and the boys decided to go it alone. So when I say that I think women have a harder time, it's because they want to be inclusive of others. They don't want to hurt other people's feelings, or they don't want to step on somebody else's toes, or they don't want to say something that will cause a rift in the wave. So what I'm saying is I think it's time during these eclipses that you pay attention to your inner power and how it's being squelched. So Gemini lunar eclipse is on November 30th. And I will be here on November 30th talking to you, helping you to move some energy. So come back on November 30th if you are dedicated to moving energy and to really letting something go. I'm going to be just free. I mean, I do that anyway, but I'm going to really open up on the eclipse day. And free for all, who knows what's going to come through. But I think it's important that you look at what are your extremes. I'm looking at some of the cards I might want to pull later. What are your extremes? Gemini represents the Castor and Pollux, the twins, in astrology. And it's the masculine, feminine, it's the higher, lower, it's the in, the out. I know some Gemini who are really devout and private and quiet, and then I know some other Geminis who are loud and opinionated and political and judgmental and controlling. And so we have to look at what's the balance between those two energies. And this is the ideal time, whether you're Gemini sun, rising, moon, or have any Gemini in any planets in your chart, doesn't matter. This is looking at your extremes. This is letting go of something that no longer serves you. I've had so many eclipse karma and you readings this past 2 weeks, and I'm finding a thread, and they've all been women, and I'm finding the thread, and that is here are powerful women who are this close to that, igniting that inner wow to physically manifest what they want. But what's stopping that? What? I would say it's safe to say that if you're listening to this, it's probably the same for you. That the contradiction on the inside for you is the not enoughs and the impatience. Right? So it's either, oh, I'm not enough, I should hang back, I don't think I could do it, and maybe it's not the right time, that's a not enough. Or it's the opposite. It's, I'm pushing so hard, I'm working so hard, and it's still not showing up. Right? So which one are you? In the extreme world, we want to look for the balance, the harmony between the two. And I would say that you have an inward momentum and an outward momentum. And again, whether you're Gemini, anything, doesn't matter. Hang on, a little dry. What does matter is understanding how energy works and your momentum. So if you want to accomplish something, let's say you are working really hard at releasing an emotion. Maybe it's been betrayal or sadness or a wound or fear. I mean, anything you name that's a negative is a minion of fear. Doubt, insecurity, arrogance, control, procrastination, you name it. It's a minion of fear. So, but get to know what fear is for you. What is the fear? And oh, good morning. Hey, Vicky's here, and Wendy, good morning. Good afternoon, good night, depending on when you are listening to this, whether live or in a replay here on Facebook or on YouTube. Please remember to like, subscribe, share the love. And so now I'm going to ask you to pick a card. Okay. And this is the one that was hiding. So that's going to be the one extreme. And now let's look for the other one. So I want you to think about your extremes and what you're doing for yourself. Oh, here's the other. Okay. And what are you doing for yourself? What is it that you want to manifest? Do you want to communicate something to an outside situation, to the world, to a spouse, to a coworker, to a neighbor? So during this month where we had a lot of retrogrades, and then Mercury went direct, Mars went direct, we were having some work done on our front yard, and because it was a request from one of our neighbors to help them out. So we decided to help them out by doing this thing that we have to do in our front yard with digging up rocks and, getting the culvert put together and all that. And so we're doing it at our expense. We're happy to do it. It'll also look better, which is great. But we didn't need to do it. But we're doing it for our neighbors. And so one day I'm driving home from walking the dog, and I see, because I take the dog to a local park. But anyway, I see my neighbor, one of my neighbors, talking to the guy and instructing him what to do. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. And then when he saw me, he walked away. I mean, it's really childish behavior, right? So I went in and talked to my husband, and I said, okay, he's telling our guy what to do. What do you want to do? But he's not offering to pay for something he needs that we're doing and incurring the cost. So I had my 4-minute temper tantrum, and I said, you know what? Well, I'm just going to leave it. I was going to leave it, because to get into that behavior with someone else I cannot change the way someone thinks. I can only change the way I respond or react. And so now I have a stronger boundary with this person. And of course, we instructed our guy, don't listen to him. We're paying you, and it's our property. All right, so let's look at these oh my gosh. Look at these expansive cards. And this is from The Secret Language of Light by Denise Jarvie. And I love these cards. Okay, so one is expansion. And the other, of course, would be contraction, right? So what is expansive in your life? What's expanding? What is it that you feel is really growing now because you've been putting in the time, the energy, the effort, or what's expanding and you don't have a grip on it? Like your anger is expanding, your frustration is expanding, your intolerance is expanding. Just like I was talking about, I had to come to a place, and my husband and I both talked about it for a few minutes and said, well, we could say something, which we have in the past, it's not the first time, and thought, okay, we need to work the problem from our energy end and set up an energetic bubble around our house where we are still polite, we are still conversational, but yet there is a definite boundary, even more so. And it's there now, and it's unmistakable. It's almost funny to see my neighbor walk out. I'll wave, say hello, and then he literally waves and turns and goes away. There's no conversation from his end. So the energetic bubble is there. It's like, hey, you know what you did. That was just not cool. But that's okay, because we learn how to navigate these things and what to let go of. Now, Gemini is an energy guided by Mercury, which is all about communication, inner synapses, how to think the problem, how to work the problem. Where is the solution? What is the solution? And it's never changing them, ever, ever, ever. Does that make sense? Okay, because with this, hi Rakara, shoot, I'm late. You're never late. No, you're always on time. So I want you to look at what you think is expansive for you in a positive way, and then what's expanding in the negative way. What's the expansion in the negative way? Are you expanding on emotions that are out of control? Are you expanding on clamming up and not even communicating? Which would lead to passive aggressiveness in the future? Are you expanding on new beliefs, letting go of the old ones? You know, there's so much that's happening. And for each of the signs, it's going to be completely different. So wherever Gemini is in your chart, you're going to see where these eclipses for the next 14 months are taking place. That's what I've been talking to people about in these eclipse sessions, Eclipse Karma in You. And you know what? I've got to go get the link now. I forgot to do that. Hey, Dean, if you're listening, can you post a link to Eclipse Karma in You session? Just asking. Just wondering if you can. Thanks, honey. And the other card, hang on one second while I organize my desk. Let's see. Ba-ba-da-ba. Here I go again. I have a new mouse and it shuts off after a few minutes of not using it. So I find it to be most inconvenient. I do like it, but you know, if I'm not using it, it saves power, but I'm like always clicking. Okay, I think I found it. La, la, la. Where is it? There it is. Okay, I found it. So I do have a few spots open. I'm going to extend that for people because of the holiday. The eclipses are happening for the next 14 months, so it's not just November and December. You know, as some people say, oh, we're coming up on the eclipse and the day before, of, and after is the most potent. Oh no, we're having the Sagittarius Gemini eclipses all the way through next year with a bonus eclipse in Taurus. I gave it away. That's the bonus. So let me just post this. Get your Karma eclipse session now while supplies last. And it's going to be, I've been going over an hour, and it's going to include the next several years and what each of the eclipses portend in your world and how it relates to karma and resolving these issues and actual steps to take to work out this stuff so you're done with it. You can walk away empowered. Because I also talk about the North and the South nodes, which are karmic adjuncts of the moon. And they're more powerful during a lunar eclipse. And even more powerful because the lunar nodes, the North node and the South node, are now in Gemini and Sagittarius. So interesting, right? We're having a whole axis of what do I believe? How do I want to proceed? And then when do I cut myself off at the knees with judgment, with control? Either lack of self-control or trying to control the thing or the person, or finding judgment and condemnation. And it could be just a split second, but that split second stops you from manifesting what you really want. Now, the other card that I picked, does this make sense? Rakara says, natal Gemini, 10th house, progressed 9th house. Not sure which to follow. I'll start with the natal. I mean, progressed always, you know, you can see the overriding theme with the natal. because that's what you came here with, to this earth. And then the progressed is, yeah, if you're a progressed Gemini or you're a progressed Sagittarian in astrology, that also opens more doors, but you start with the natal always. So the other card, that I picked was, I want you to imagine that nothing has gone wrong. What would it be like if nothing has gone wrong in your mind? What have I been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks? Christmas always works out for me, and every day is Christmas. Now, I use Christmas because it's not a religious thing for me. It's not a Santa Claus thing for me. It's the giving. It's the joy of the season that for me is every day, around the clock, every month. It's not just December. And I love thinking of, that my friend would love that. I'm going to send him a link to that video. Or to me, that's Christmas. It's like the giving, but also allowing myself to receive. That was the hardest thing. That was my extreme. So if you can imagine that nothing has gone wrong, what would your world look like? That's what I would like this Sagittarius Gemini axis to present to you, if you will allow it. What are the possibilities? If you say to yourself, Christmas always works out for me and every day is Christmas. Wait a minute. It doesn't have to be Christmas. It could be every day works out for me. Every day. And I love that pure conscious love, aka source, is always there to support me. Always. I am always supported internally and externally from expected and unexpected sources. Always. How does that manifest? If you stick with it, you'll see evidence. We like to look at physical evidence to tell us where we are. We use physical evidence as a marker, right? Well, I'm, halfway through writing that report. So in another, it took me 2 hours to do the first half. It'll probably take me another 2 hours to do the second half. So we set up parameters by physical evidence. And then what happens in those next 2 hours? Well, suddenly you're in a groove because you got warmed up from the first 2 hours. And it only took you an hour and 10 minutes to finish. So, that's a surprise. Or maybe it took 3 hours because you're like, I really don't want to do this. It's taking forever. That's not a surprise that it's taking forever and it took you longer. So your attitude is definitely in play all the time. So the lunar eclipse, let me just state it again. Lunar eclipse on November 30th in Gemini, 8 degrees. Hang on while I get my paper. And then on December 14th, solar eclipse in Sagittarius. And that is at 23 degrees, 8 minutes. Then if you can look at, hey, Casey's here, hi. If you can look at which part of your life right now is lighting up, and it can be a sudden, like a jumble of emotions where you suddenly feel overwhelmed or sad or sentimental, and it coincides with, and you might want to name it. Gemini energy always wants to name it. Gemini and Sagittarius energies can be very spiritual. They can be very intellectual. So they're always looking to quantify. Well, that happened. I felt this way. Therefore, I know the next time that happens, I might feel that way. So it's like A plus B equals C. But to go even deeper, if you're feeling sentimental in the next couple of weeks or months, depending on if you've got Gemini in your chart, that sentimentality must be felt, not just thought about. You've heard me say this before. The moment you start thinking about an experience that you're having is the moment you stop having the experience. Now, of course, a lot of people with Gemini are going to say, wait a minute, let me think about that. Or Sagittarius. Wait a minute, let me think about that. Okay, you think on it, but also remember to feel. Because feeling is a huge part, a huge component of these eclipses, because the lunar eclipse is relates to a woman or a feminine energy. It could be you. Doesn't matter if you're male, female, non-binary. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what is the feeling and what are you doing with the feeling? Now, if it's a negative feeling and all you do is talk about the problem, and it feels terrible and I can't go anywhere because of COVID, and now they squashed the flights and there's an order and I got to stay at home and that's it. And the more you focus on the negative, the more you expand into the extreme of the negative feelings. So we want to reel it in, cast your line toward fresher waters, more possibilities, and reel it in. And say more to yourself, okay, that's a reality because there's a thing, I can't go, it's canceled, there's a fear of contraction, of a virus, or whatever is happening. Then give yourself some neutral time and shift it. Remember, Gemini is looking at the opposites. But what's the harmony in between? What's the bridge? I always tell my Gemini people, Gemini Sun, Rising, Moon, to create a bridge. Especially Gemini Moon. They're always thinking about stuff. And so they can appear very callous at times emotionally, or removed emotionally. But that's because they're not feeling their own feelings all the time. They're thinking about their feelings. And that's not good, bad judgment. It's not an indifferent. It's just a definition. So when you look at your definitions and you say, okay, I'm definitely skewed toward the negative right now. Okay, if you're skewed toward the negative, you want to come back to neutral and then move to positive. When the solar eclipse comes in December on the 14th at, 23 degrees of Sagittarius, 8 minutes, you're going to actually see the solution or the possibilities that can happen if you allow the expansion. Remember, what are extremes in this universe? Contraction or expansion? Now, if you expand on something that's negative, you will get more of that. If you expand on something more positive, you will feel calmer, you'll vibrate a different frequency. That wave, and particle that you emit is suddenly going to line up with another person, situation, events, positive vibe that matches. And then you bring it to you. That's pretty powerful, right? Yes, Casey, Gemini rising, right? Me? Yes, you. We have someone else here today with a Gemini rising. So with the eclipses, we're looking at, with Sagittarius, by the way, it represents, the centaur is the symbol. The centaur, half human, half animal, with a bow and arrow, searching for the truth. And so the centaur is a mythical creature, and it represents, for Sagittarius, the embracing all cultures, all ideologies, to see how to solve the problem. A lot of Sages move into medicine, whether they be Sag, Sun, Rising, or Moon. They move into the world of holistic healing, energy work, religion, philosophy, biology, just to see how does the thing work and when does it not work. Let's assess the situation so we can solve the problem. Now, on the downside, and it doesn't matter if you have everyone has Sagittarius. Let me see, do I have a, nope, I don't have it. I don't have it. I thought I had, wait, here's a screenshot. Is this one? Let's see, this would be an old, okay. So here's an older chart from November 13th. But what I want you to see is that everyone will have a chart. Not everyone will be a Taurus rising, but everyone will have a chart. And on the cusp of a house, someone will have Sagittarius. Now, in this house, if you're a Taurus rising, depending on degree, pretty much you'll have Sagittarius on the cusp of your 8th house. Okay? But then Gemini, over there in the 2nd house. But everyone will have Gemini, Sagittarius opposite. Everyone in their charts. Doesn't mean that you have a planet in Sagittarius. Make sense? So let me just get rid of that. So when we look at how does it work with eclipses? Because sometimes you're so bent on the thing, like you're so focused on, I'm working on a project, or I've been like working out every day, I'm working on my health, and then the eclipses come by and you think, well, now I'm going to see the results because A plus B equals C, according to Sam Pythagoras. And then something from over there comes into view, and it has nothing to do with what you've been working on. You're like, hey, I've worked so hard. How come I'm not seeing results? Well, I had a client who is a Sagittarius rising sign. Many years ago, worked really hard, personal trainer, exercise, wanted to get in shape for their kid's wedding. And I said, well, how'd you do? It was, many months later, how did it go? Well, I got fitted for my dress today and I gained 3 pounds. Nothing else. And we were shocked because of all the effort that this person had put in. And I said, okay, well, what came up for you when you heard the news? When you got fitted and you thought, you were working toward that goal for 3 months, 4 months, and nothing happened. The amount of angst, anxiety, and I said, okay, that's where you need to go. Because if you work toward a goal and it didn't come out the way you wanted in whatever time span, and your reaction is pretty calm, like, oh, well, I'll keep going. I'll just keep at it. Maybe I need to adjust the dials here or there. Okay, then you're on the right track. But if you are so attached to an outcome and it does not happen, and you're crestfallen or you fall off a cliff emotionally, then that's what you're being shown. Does that make sense? Because it's the energy that makes the matter. So if you're focused on making something happen, yes, focus, have the goal, act toward it. You gotta let it go. And so lunar eclipse is showing you in Gemini how to let go of the attachment or the judgment around it. Like, oh, they're never gonna hire in this economy? Yeah. Well, then you've just put yourself in a box. And remember, folks, there are no boxes. Except the ones up here. Jessica, how do you know if you're a Gemini rising? Well, you can go to my website, astrologymojo.com, and scroll to the bottom of the page where you can input all of your information, where you were born, your full name, your exact birth time, city and state, and they give you drop downs on the program, and then you can get a chart. You get a free chart. astrologymojo.com, and you can find out where your Gemini is. So does this make sense? Because I want to see you get what you need. But if you're people come to me and go, what can you tell me about? And it's like, well, what can you tell me? What you tell me? I'll redirect you. That's my job. I'll show you the shadow where you get stuck, where you jump over thoughts and say, oh yeah, oh right, yeah, I do that. So whatever pattern you are repeating, is it redundant to say repeatedly? You gotta get in to get out. Oh. Yep. You gotta get in. You gotta get in there. And that's what the lunar eclipse shows you, an open door to a pattern that you are repeating. It's like literally, do we have them anymore? Broken record? It's broken CD. We didn't have those. It's like, it's a glitch in the computer, in iTunes or Spotify or Pandora. So it's the thing you keep generating over and over again. Gemini is very specific with thought. Gemini, I know a lot of comics who are Gemini or Gemini rising, or a lot of medical industry people. Same with Sagittarius. And so it's looking at the specifics through a microscope, right? But then you have to pull back and go, what? What's the bigger picture here? Because if you're working towards something and it's not happening, well, there's a few things. It could be that the conditions right now in the world are limiting. Okay, that's a reality. Everything's real that you think is real. And so then you go inside to your little house and you say, okay, I can't go out there, but I can still do it from here. How do I do it from here? What do I do from here? Get a new job, change my attitude. It's always going to come down to changing your attitude. Finding that ideal thing, working toward the problem, knowing that the solution, is always in the problem. So you have to step back every once in a while and be a little bit less specific about the intensity of the trajectory. Does that make sense? And I'm talking specifically about a fire, air, earth, fire, air, and because there's a Taurus eclipse next year, but fire, air eclipse series. They happen again in May and June, and then in December. In November next year, it is a Taurus eclipse. But between now and then, there's 5 in, let's see, we've got Gemini, lunar eclipse November 30th, Gemini, solar eclipse June 10th, and then that's air, right? And then December 14th of this year, we've got Sagittarius solar eclipse, then May, Sagittarius lunar eclipse, then next December, Sagittarius solar eclipse. So that's fire. So it's pulling back, taking a look at how you want to organize the plan, and then igniting action. But based on what? A plan doesn't start with thought. It starts with energy. You have to have a desire. Because if you make a plan to go take a trip across country and your heart's not in it, what's going to happen? You don't go, number one. Number two, you're halfway there. You're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I knew this would happen. Or my butt's hurting. How many more hours till we get to the next place? And we have to wear, and then there's quarantine in certain states. And you have to shut down and you have to stay for 2 weeks. And it's like, forget it. But if your heart's desire were, I really still want to travel, then you take precautions and you go travel, right? So the energy is it's the impetus for the whole trajectory. Now it changes along the way because you have pitfalls or roadblocks or red lights or, detours, and you go with it. So can you imagine if you only ever had one feeling and one thought, you would have manifested it like that. But we don't operate that way. That's not who we are. We'd like variety. That's a big Sag Gemini axis too. We need variety. It's like, I want to do that for 20 minutes, 20 hours, for a year, or for 10 years. Nope, now I'm doing that. Got to do that. Got to change. Because it's the variety that keeps us going and keeps us interested. But just pay attention to how you're feeling along the way. Okay? Does that make sense? Well, when I come back on Monday, and I don't typically work on the day of an eclipse because the energy can be very strange and very distorted, or there could be tech anomalies, or weather patterns can be really strange. But I am coming back on Monday. I was drawn to do a Facebook Live on Monday and talk to people specifically about their issues. So if you want to come back and tell me about your extremes and where you feel stuck on November 30th, I'm here. Now, we're not going to do full readings. I'm just going to, quickly go through, sounds like this, sounds like that, sounds like this for everybody. Okay? Does that make sense? Yay! Here in America, it's Thanksgiving. What are you thankful for? I'm thankful for every moment that I breathe, that I think, that I feel, that I stare into space. I am thankful and grateful for all of it. And most of all, I forget who said it. Sandra, what's her name, said, well, without you, I'm nothing. And I agree. Because I wouldn't be here if you didn't have a need or a desire to watch. So I appreciate that. Elizabeth says, this Gemini rising is listening carefully. I gotcha. So it's also important to think that during eclipses, what comes out sometimes is a very, for some people, it's like, oh yeah, nothing. They don't feel a thing. And other people, it's like, oh my gosh, I had a vision. Like, and they bump into walls in the middle of the night going, oh my gosh, is that real? Did that just happen to me? So it can be so eye-opening or soul expanding. It can be so big that your mind is blown for a couple of days. And not negative or positive. Everyone is going to be different and have a different experience based on what their trajectory is, what they're feeling, what their undercurrent is. What in your unconscious state, you are always operating from fear. That's a given. It's to protect your biology. But what are you doing consciously to get to know your unconscious? That's where I go. So I always find it very helpful to book energy sessions around eclipses. Now I'm going to try something new. My polarity gal retired. No cry. I love polarity, and her people that she trained aren't working yet. So I'm going to be trying something called Alpha Biotics. And I can't wait. This is going to be my lunar eclipse energy work, and I'll report back. But I find it so valuable to work with crystals or to meditate or do a different type of meditation. You got to change it up. It's like that Gemini thing, want something new, because then you start to pay attention even more. You might say, oh, I've been doing, TM for years and it's always worked for me. Great. Now, go do Pilates. Go see where you get frustrated. Or go do Tai Chi and see where you want to rush through it because you want to be done. Because the Gemini Sag axis is, oh, let's go, let's get it done. Sagittarius is also a really great builder of energy or of actual stuff, building houses or sheds or laying floors or seeing the truth through optimism and the possibilities. So you always want to counter your negative thoughts or the minimal judgments. And I knew a Gemini once who said to me, it looks that way because it is that way, and that's the way it is. And that person was also in therapy for 10 years on one topic. No, I said, you got to stop. That's not helping, apparently. You just go because you like to talk. But what is it doing? It's doing nothing. So if you're used to doing one form of thing, an exercise, a way of communicating, if you're always taking up space in the room or doing all the research, and you're in a partnership, a love relationship, or partnership with yourself, forget about anybody else, just a partnership with yourself, you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to hang back now. I have this urge to, no, an urge doesn't come from love. It doesn't. A desire can, but not an urge. An urge is like, hurry up, get it done. I'm going to go do this because I'm bored, because I want something else. I need excitement. I need to feel alive. Somebody light a fire under me. So that's why I say I recommend doing something different. If you're always putting out into the world, sit back, hang back, see what comes your way. If you're someone who is always in an area of life, you're always doing one thing, now do the opposite. If you're someone who is also looking to move energy in big ways, of course, you can get a reading with me, a Karma Eclipse session. The link is in the thread. Or do something different energetically. Try some yoga. You don't have to go to a class. You can do online. Or, go for a walk in nature without a phone and headphones. Minimize the stimulus. Make sense? Because as you move through this stuff, you're going to have like big ahas like, oh, wow, I know I do that now. Or, oh yeah, I've been ignoring it. So you want to only ever approach a project, a conversation, a thing with what kind of motivation behind it? Love. With compassion, with excitement, with desire. If you ever approach something with dread or negation or, already contradicting the outcome, silent argument. Yeah. It's not going to be a happy time. So that's where I'm coming from. Happy Thanksgiving to all my U.S. peeps, and I am grateful for you. Thank you. Please come back on Monday and bring me your woes. I'm going to be like the Statue of Liberty. Bring me your huddled masses and your messed up patterns. I'm here for you. I love you. Okay? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have fun, whatever you do. And yeah, that's it. I'm done. All right. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I'm grateful. As always, I wish you peace. See you Monday.